Summertime means longer days, warm nights, fishing, baseball, and picnics. The risk of becoming ill or even dying of overexposure from the effects of heat becomes greater. Every year, too many workers are hospitalized or die from heat-related illness. There have been reports of amateur and professional athletes who've died by the effects of heat illness. Employees working in hot environments can also suffer from heat illness. Let's begin with a brief anatomy lesson. Our body is covered with 22 square feet of skin. The skin protects our bodies from infections and injuries and cools our body's internal engine, something like a giant radiator with 2.6 million sweat glands. At the underside of our brain is the hypothalamus, which regulates body temperature and the release of hormones. Should we become dehydrated or overheated, the hypothalamus may malfunction, making us unable to control our core body temperature. The result is often death if not recognized and treated immediately. We're constantly sweating even though it may not be noticeable. You even sweat while swimming. Sweating is your body's way of eliminating excess body heat, similar to steam escaping from a boiler. A major factor that influences the rate of sweat and skin evaporation is the relative humidity of the air. Hot, humid conditions contain water vapor, so sweat doesn't evaporate and cool your body as efficiently as when the air is dry. There are some personal risk factors relating to heat illness such as age, degree of acclimatization, health, water, alcohol and caffeine consumption, and use of prescription medications. When the temperature exceeds 80 degrees and the relative humidity approaches 20% to 40%, employers must take action to reduce the risk of heat illness. At temperatures above 90 degrees Fahrenheit, especially with heavy work, heat risk reduction needs to be a major concern. It's especially important to be vigilant during periods of abnormally high heat. Another study revealed that a significant number of auto accidents occurring after work during hot weather are due to the mental effects of heat stress. The effect on the body can be similar to those experienced by a driver under the influence of alcohol. The lesson here is the human body requires hydration in order for mental processes to function properly. Heat cramps occur during or after strenuous exercise or outdoor activity. Symptoms are usually severe pain and cramps in the legs and abdomen, faintness or dizziness, weakness, and profuse sweating. Heat cramps often occur in football players who are unable to maintain sufficient hydration. Sweating depletes the body of salt and fluids. The low salt level in the muscles causes the painful cramps. Heat cramps may also be a precursor to heat exhaustion. If you have heart problems or are on a low-sodium diet, be sure to seek medical attention for heat cramps. The following steps should be taken if there are symptoms of heat cramps. Stop all activity and sit quietly in a cool, shaded location. Drink cool water. Don't return to strenuous activity for several hours after the cramps subside, as further exertion may lead to heat exhaustion or heat stroke. Seek medical attention if heat cramps do not subside in a short period of time. If there's any doubt, get to medical care immediately. Heat exhaustion is a condition that can occur when exposed to heat for a prolonged period of time. The problem is compounded when there is both heat and high humidity. The body may become overwhelmed by heat when its mechanism for sweating fails to work properly. The skin may be cool and moist along with profuse sweating. The pulse rate may be fast and weak, and breathing fast and shallow. If heat exhaustion is left untreated, it may progress to heat stroke, a real medical emergency. Always seek medical attention for anyone exhibiting these symptoms, as the progression to heat stroke may be imminent. Symptoms of heat exhaustion include nausea and vomiting, dizziness, fainting and disorientation, weakness, heavy sweating and pale, moist skin, headache, and a weak pulse. The effects of heat exhaustion can usually be reversed by providing fluids and a shaded, cool location in which to cool down. Medical care is always advisable. First, it's important to get in the habit of drinking plenty of water constantly throughout the day. Drink cool water, rest in a shaded and/or air-conditioned area. Take a cool shower, bath, or otherwise cool the skin with water. Open any confining clothing to allow airflow and circulation. Heat stroke is the most serious heat-related illness. Heat stroke strikes suddenly and with little warning. Heat stroke is a major medical emergency that can result in death. Heat stroke occurs when the body becomes unable to control its temperature. The body's temperature rises rapidly, the sweating mechanism fails, and the body is unable to cool down. The body temperature may rise to 106 or more within a short period of time. Heat stroke can cause death or permanent disability if emergency treatment is not provided immediately. Heat stroke is a real life-threatening medical emergency. The signs of heat stroke include very high body temperature, hot, dry skin, absence or lack of sweating, fast pulse, confusion, and possible loss of consciousness. This is a medical emergency and if left untreated can result in death. Should these symptoms occur, you need to call 911. Ask 911 for instructions until responders arrive. Get the victim to a cool, shady area. Cool the victim rapidly using whatever methods you can. For example, immerse the victim in cool water or place them in a cool shower or spray the victim with cool water from a hose. You can also sponge the person with cold water, place ice pack around the wrists, ankles, and neck, and fan the victim vigorously. Only give the victim water to drink. Become familiar with the requirements of your state or federal safety regulations pertaining to the prevention of heat illness. This information should be part of your heat stress prevention program. For further information, check your state or federal OSHA's website for information on heat illness. California's site is www.dir.ca.gov/DOSH/heatillnessinfo.html. Your employer is responsible for developing and implementing a written heat illness prevention program. The heat illness prevention program should cover the following topics: environmental and personal risk factors for heat illness, common signs and symptoms of each type of heat illness, preventing heat illness, identifying, evaluating, and controlling exposures to the environmental and personal risk factors for heat illness, frequent consumption of adequate water, up to 4 cups per hour or more, take breaks from the heat, achieving acclimatization, procedures for supervisors to follow when an employee exhibits symptoms of heat illness, emergency response procedures, refresher training on procedures. Acclimatization refers to the time the body needs to adapt when temperatures rise suddenly. Workers need time for their bodies to adjust or acclimatize to working in hot conditions. Acclimatization is particularly important for employees returning to work after a prolonged absence or recent illness and/or recently moving from a cool to a hot climate or working during the beginning stages of a heat wave. In order to have a successful acclimatization, the Center for Disease Control recommends for heavy work under extremely hot conditions a period of 4 to 10 days of progressively increasing work time, starting with about 2 hours work per day. Monitor employees closely for signs and symptoms of heat illness, particularly when they've not been working in heat for the last few days or when a heat wave occurs. When it comes to the first heat wave of the season, give employees a break. Make the shifts a little shorter and schedule work not to be done during high temperatures. A recent heat illness case study revealed that more than 60% of supervisors of employees who died from heat stroke had not been trained in the prevention of heat illnesses. Employees and supervisors must be trained and highly aware of the company's heat illness prevention program on how to identify the signs and symptoms of heat illness, shade requirements, and preventing the onset and treating potential victims. Training must be reinforced. Conduct frequent tailgate meetings, classes, or online training to remind employees about heat illness issues. Make sure employee training is provided in a language that employees can understand. We need to recognize that with the exception of certain industrial operations, weather-related heat waves are the primary cause of heat-related illnesses and fatalities. The employer supervisor need to track weather and routinely check for approaching heat waves and other unreasonable weather patterns. If temperatures of 85 degrees or more is predicted, prepare to implement the company's heat illness prevention procedures. If you have employees who use protective clothing, such as Tyvek, hazmat suits, or other clothing that can interfere with the body's ability to dissipate heat, creating a potential heat stress hazard even when temperatures are mild, evaluate the work and extra heat burden and act accordingly to prevent heat illness. The definition of shade is the blockage of direct sunlight. Structures such as umbrellas, pop-up shades, and structures with one or more open sides can be helpful in preventing excess sun exposure. The nearest shaded area must be within a short 2.5-minute walk. Requiring an employee to walk a long distance for shade is inappropriate. Employers are required to provide shade for recovery periods when employees need relief from the heat. Employees must be allowed to remain in the shade for at least 5 minutes or as necessary to cool down. Avoid using the interior of a vehicle for shade unless the air conditioner is turned on. In many cases, metal storage sheds and other outbuildings do not provide adequate protection from the sun due to heat from the metal covering. In order to be considered shade, these structures must be mechanically ventilated or open to air movement. Provide seating off the ground that will allow employees to sit and rest without being in contact with the dirt or pavement. When employees are using shade, supervisors should use this as an opportunity to assess their condition and encourage them to drink water in order to rehydrate. Fans and misting devices can be used. When we wake up and head off to work, most of us drink a cup of coffee. You are likely dehydrated before even leaving the house. During the night, you lost fluids while sleeping, and the coffee you just drank is a diuretic, causing you to lose more water due to the caffeine. It's a good idea to begin your rehydration regimen before starting the day. In conditions of high heat and strenuous work, sweating can cause you to lose more than a quart of fluid per hour. Continuous replacement of lost fluid is absolutely critical to maintain the life-preserving cooling effects of perspiration. The best source of fluids is a lot of water. Drinking water must always be in locations that are readily accessible to all employees. The water provided must be cool, fresh, and in sufficient quantity. Clean, single-use disposable cups for sanitation should be available. Clean and disinfect the water container daily as well. Other fluid options such as soda, tea, coffee, caffeine-charged drinks, and sport drinks are not as effective as water.
We actually have had cases in the United States, and there was an issue of a company here in Texas that we utilize materials such as Gatorade and Quench, and it is manufactured, or the manufacturer of this product specifically says, here's how you have to dilute this material. We have had individuals who, obviously we don't like the taste of the liquid because it has no flavor to it when we mix it as we're supposed to, so we mix it stronger. In mixing it stronger, what ends up happening is your body uses all the minerals that's in this particular material, and where does the rest of it go? It's flushed to the sewer system of your body, which happens to be your kidneys. And what has happened is that we have had people actually have to go on dialysis to balance their kidneys, or to get their kidneys balanced again, because there is no water in and not drinking water and not allowing you to flush this extra minerals out of your body, which your body did need. And again, it is important to remember that if you are drinking this material, that you drink water along with it to help flush the excess of these minerals out of your body.
If your doctor generally limits the amount of fluid you drink, or you are on water pills, check with the doctor for advice for working in hot weather. If you have any other medical condition, check with your doctor before working in hot environments. When dehydrated, you're unable to think clearly or rationally, the same effects of alcohol consumption. Water must be provided for each employee to be able to drink 1 quart of water per hour or 2 gallons per shift. Everyone must be trained on the signs and symptoms of heat illness. The importance of rapidly obtaining emergency medical services in the event of a serious injury or illness can be critical. Be sure there are written procedures which include steps to keep a stricken employee cool and comfortable while waiting for emergency responders. The goal here is to reduce the progression to a more serious illness. A first aid provider who is available at the site can determine the appropriate response when an employee is experiencing possible symptoms of heat illness, which may range from drinking water and resting in the shade to calling 911 for emergency medical attention. Make sure there is an emergency access plan if work is being done in a rural area. Employees need to know how to provide directions for emergency responders. If there is a language barrier, somebody should be available to give directions in English. It's easier to prevent heat illness than to treat it once symptoms develop. Take breaks out of the sun as much as possible. Wear light, loose clothing, such as cotton, so sweat can evaporate. Invest in clothing that absorbs sweat, which enhances the cooling effect, and wear a wide-brimmed hat. Use a high-quality sunscreen to prevent sunburn. Sunburn can hinder the skin's ability to cool itself. Encourage employees to drink water often. Employees suffering from any of the effects of heat illness must be provided with access to shade and ventilation or cooling equipment for a period of time that is sufficient to recover. Training to be conducted on how to prevent and treat heat illness. Employers are required to have a written heat illness prevention program. The heat illness prevention program is to be communicated to supervisors and employees. Being in the sun can turn into a medical emergency. Take the time to learn the signs and symptoms and treatment of heat illness. Follow your organization's heat illness policy and stay cool this summer season.